Okay, thank you. All right, good afternoon. Welcome to Tech Tuesday. We thank you for joining us today to hear from Dominisha Newton, who is a student advisor with the Scholarship Foundation. Ms. Newton has been working with students at North Tech for over a year now, and we truly appreciate her taking the time to join us today to share her expertise. So as you may know, the FAFSA, which is the free application for federal student aid, becomes available next week. So our hope for today's session is that you are provided with an overview of the financial aid process, and for students looking to attend college next school year, that you're prompted to come up with a plan to complete your FAFSA. Before Ms. Newton begins presenting, I'd like for my colleagues from Special School District to introduce themselves. So we'll start with Ms. Bengali.
Hi, I'm Heidi Bengali, and I am the Tech Specialist Instructor for both North and South Technical High Schools.
Okay, Mr. Chandler.
I am Jeff Chandler. I am the career counselor at South Technical High School.
And Ms. Shaughnessy.
Hi, I'm Carla Shaughnessy. I am one of the counselors at South Tech High School.
Okay, and I am Sally Defani, Administrator of Partnerships for Special School District. Please remember that our Tech Tuesday sessions happen every week at 2 o'clock. We've lined up partners from education, business, and industry, all coming to share information with you that we hope helps you with your post-secondary planning. More information on our Tech Tuesday sessions, including a schedule and the recordings or links to the recordings, can be found on your school's website. As Ms. Newton is presenting, please feel free to type any questions you may have into the chat feature. And also, you should see a link already in the chat feature. If you would like to schedule a follow-up session with Ms. Newton, please feel free to access that link and she will contact you to schedule a meeting. Okay, I think we're ready to get started. Ms. Newton, would you like to share your screen?
All right. All right, can you confirm that my screen is being shared?
I don't see it. Ms. Bengali?
I don't see the screen.
All right, just a second.
Okay.
All right,
There
should
we
be there
go.
now. All
Very
right,
good.
Great. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Dominisha. I'm one of the student advisors at the Scholarship Foundation of St. Louis, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. I want to first thank everyone for tuning in today. I know that we are living in a time where we're doing a lot on our computer. You're having a lot of screen time, so I appreciate those that have tuned in early and those that are here now. And again, like it was mentioned earlier, please offer any questions, any clarifications that you have throughout this presentation, put it in the comment box and we'll be sure to get to it. So for those that aren't familiar with the Scholarship Foundation, we're a 100-year-old nonprofit organization who believes that an educated society is essential to a healthy democracy. We also believe that post-secondary education should be available to everyone despite their socioeconomic status. And we work towards that mission in a couple of ways. We provide access to post-secondary education to members of our community who otherwise would not have the financial means to do so by way of our scholarship and interest-free loan program. We also have an advising program, which I'm a part of, where we offer free and reliable advice to students and their family. We give them the information that they need, the information that they want, so that they can make an educated decision about their post-secondary goals. We also have an advocacy program where the foundation advocates at a school, state, and federal level. And through that program, there's this group called League of Student Advocates, which is a bi-state collective of students working towards equity in higher education. So once you graduate high school and you're interested in policy, or you're interested in having a say in the things that are directly affecting students, I would encourage you to look into the League of Student Advocates. It's a really great program, a really great way for you to learn a little more about policy and to how to use your voice in the decisions that are being made and affecting students. So the link was shared with all students, I believe, where it'll give you access to a workbook. If you want, you can follow alone. But you can also, I encourage you to read through that workbook when you have more time to help you identify questions you might have related to college and also learn a little more about the process. In this presentation, I'll try my best not to get too much in the weeds, but here's some things that we'll touch on. We'll talk about ways to get started. I think this may be a daunting process. You've been thinking about college maybe, or maybe you've just started thinking about it. But you know, it's a complex process from what you know. People are throwing words at you that you may not know what it means, like FAFSA, financial aid, EFC, SAR. Hopefully we can talk about some of those things right now. Hopefully I can spark new questions that you haven't had yet. And hopefully I can help alleviate some of the anxiety or doubt that you have about the process. So in addition to talking about getting ready, we're going to touch on building your support system. We're all using a support system in one way or another to accomplish all the goals we have in our life. So we're going to touch on that and related to college access specifically. Then we're going to talk about the different financial resources. So the ways that you can pay for your post-secondary education. We're going to talk about how do you determine your financial need. So everyone knows that college is expensive, but how do you know exactly what that will mean for you? How much will you actually have to pay? So I'm going to show you a simple equation on determining your financial need. We're going to identify some scholarship researches. Everyone, at least I would be interested in all the free money that can help me pay for college. So I'm going to share with you some resources as well as how to prioritize your research. And then lastly, I'll share with you all the Scholarship Foundation eligibility criteria, because I did mention we have a scholarship program as well as an interest-free, fee-free student loan. All right, so getting ready. So students are all going to go through a similar process, but there's going to be uniqueness to each one of your processes. So it's important to identify where you are in the college planning process. Let's talk about setting up a timeline. So there's a lot that goes into it. There's going to be some concrete deadlines throughout the process, but a lot of it will depend on students being disciplined and prioritizing all the necessary steps. I know I may be talking a lot about going to college, but even if you plan on entering the workforce or going into service, it's still a process. So if college is something you're not interested in, I still encourage you to listen to the information. You might be able to apply this to your plans after you graduate high school. But for the sake of college, here's some deadlines that may help us create our own timeline. So like it was mentioned in the beginning, FAFSA is opening up soon on October 1st. That's a very important deadline to keep in mind. Not so much a deadline, but a date to keep in mind, because that's when it opens and that's when you can get started. In Missouri, there's a priority deadline, which is in February, in which you want to try to get your FAFSA done before that day to receive guaranteed consideration for the Missouri state-based aid. Some students may be taking the ACT. So you want to be sure that in your process, you outline enough time for you to take the ACT and also do a makeup. I am actually not familiar on the changes that maybe have been put in place for ACT as far as the pandemic. But if you are also unsure like I am, I encourage you all to reach out to your school counselors to get information on that. While we're planning to go to school, I'm almost sure that someone's going to ask you to write a personal statement. Rather, that is for your school admissions application. If you're applying for a scholarship, you may be asked to do a personal statement. And what is required in that? That there's may not be a way or a deadline for you to decide when you get your personal statement done, other than any application deadlines, but be thinking about how long it's going to take you to do that personal statement. You may need to take time to decide what you'll write about and create a draft and have someone review your paper. And so that's something that I would give yourself enough time so that you can complete it and do it well and have someone give an opinion or a second eye on the work that you've put together. So identifying where you need help. I think this is a challenging one, but it's so important. So in addition to the process taking time, I think it's important to identify the people we can add into our lives, the questions that we can learn to ask throughout this journey of deciding if you want to go to school, what school you want to go to, what resources you need to make that possible, and things like that. And then lastly, be thinking of a backup plan. Be thinking of what's going to happen if I'm unable to go to my dream school. What's going to happen if I thought I was going to be out of state, but really it's important for me and my family for me to stay in state. Backup plans always seem like a negative thing, but I like to think of them more as parallel plans, things that are on the same level, but it's just shifting gears. You know, there's more than one way to get from point A to point B. And so I think it's important to be creating plans that may be a shift in direction, but still going to get you to your ultimate goal. Now let's talk about our support system. When we're looking at our support system or thinking about it, let's start thinking about who are those people in our lives that can help and support you toward your goal. And then also being about what support do you still need and what type of person can be added to your support system. So I like to think of my support system as like a toolkit or a toolbox. I have changed my tires more than I would like to say this summer, and I need some tools to do that. I need something to get the bike or the wheel off the frame. I also need something to get the tire off the wheel. And all of those parts of my project require different tools. And all of the tools are important, but they all have a different task. They're all going to help me accomplish a different goal. So when you're thinking about your support system, be thinking of what's your ultimate goal? What pieces do you need to help you towards that goal? And so I want you to think of the people that you have in your life now and those that you can add. And something else I think is really important is to start identifying that person in your life that can write you a great letter of recommendation. This is something that you can start thinking about no matter whatever you plan to do after you graduate high school. I know for many jobs, I've had to provide a letter of recommendation or someone to give a recommendation for me. For the Scholarship Foundation scholarships, we're asking for references. So who's that person that is going to write a good letter of recommendation for you? Someone that knows you well, who knows your work ethic, someone that has seen how you solve problems or navigated a difficult situation. That's something that you can start thinking about that now, so that when the time comes, you can go to that person. And I would say have more than one person in mind. So the financial resources. what are the ways that we can pay for college? When I was preparing to go to college, I know that people were talking about loans and all the student loans that college students had to take to help them pay for college. But there's more than that. So you got 4 different types of financial aid that I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about some free money. So money you don't have to pay back, your grants and scholarships. And then you have money that's considered a self-help aid. So work study and loans. Those are 2 aids that are considered self-help aids. You have aid that is considered need-based, meaning they're going to look at how much your family needs or a student needs to help them pay for school to determine how much they're going to receive in aid. And then you have some aid that is considered merit-based. So they're looking at the numbers. So what is your GPA score? What test score did you get? Things like that. And I want to add a note about scholarships. Here's some things you want to consider when you're thinking about scholarships. You want to make sure that there's no cost to apply or for you to receive your scholarship money. Scholarships are free money, so you should never be paying anything to get a scholarship, to apply for one, or anything like that. You want to know, is that money renewable? Are you going to be receiving that scholarship for more than 1 year? And if so, what are the requirements so that you can continue to receive that money? There's a lot of scholarship opportunities where you will receive $1,000 for 1 year. And while that's great and all, you have to be thinking, what am I going to do next year? I'm going to have a gap to fill. And so I would just be mindful of the scholarships that you're applying for. Be mindful of if you won't receive it for a following year, how are you going to fill that gap? And then one other consideration is it portable? So can this money go from me from one school to the other? Does it matter if I change from a 2-year to a 4-year school? Does it matter if I change my major? Does it matter if I go to a different school that's in a different state? These are things to consider. And even if the answer is no, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't aim or apply for that scholarship opportunity, but just be mindful and be sure that you have a plan if you are going to be with a gap, if you change plans or something like that. And do we have any questions at all? I know I've been talking a lot so far, so I just want to be mindful for any questions.
I am not seeing any questions. Ms. Bengali or Ms. Shaughnessy, are you seeing any questions? Okay. And thank
All
you,
right.
Ms. Shaughnessy, for adding a couple of comments in the chat.
All right, and I'll carry on then. And if I'm getting close to time, someone give me a signal. All right. So let's talk about the free application for federal student aid. I'm imagining as seniors, you have maybe heard a lot about FAFSA. If you haven't, get ready. This won't be the last time that you'll hear about this free application for federal student aid in your senior year. But the reason why you're hearing so much about it is because it's the primary application to be considered for all federal, most state, and many school-based awards. So this is like the first stop when you're looking at how are you going to pay for school. So again, the application's free. So that means you should never pay to complete the application, and you should also never pay to get help in completing it. There's a lot of free assistance out there, including the Scholarship Foundation. Over the summer, we have had some experience helping students navigate the FAFSA application virtually. So we would be more than happy to help any student complete the FAFSA, answer any questions that you might have, as well as if you have concerns about eligibility to complete the FAFSA. So if you're unsure about your eligibility, we can talk to you about that to help you determine. And also, if you know you're ineligible to complete the FAFSA, we can have a conversation with you to help you determine other forms of financial resource to help you pay for your schooling. So that's the website, fafsa.gov. Again, it opens up on October 1st, and I would encourage you to work on it as close to October 1st as possible. The whole purpose of completing the FAFSA is so that your EFC can be calculated, and EFC stands for Expected Family Contribution. It's an objective calculation using your household income, the number of dependents in the household, and the number of college students in the household. As a student, there's nothing you can really do. You don't need to stress about this number. It's something that'll be calculated automatically for you based off the information you've entered onto your FAFSA. And again, if you need help filing a FAFSA, we can help you at the Scholarship Foundation. You should never pay at all to complete that. If you have any questions at all about FAFSA, we have years and years and years of experience helping students with it at the Scholarship Foundation. So please do not be shy. This is our job. We love doing this. So please come to us, and I'll be sure to share contact information for myself, as well as how to be reaching out to generally the Scholarship Foundation. All right, so let's talk about some grants. This is, again, that free money that can help you pay for college, and money that you do not have to pay back. So at the top, you have the Pell Grant. The maximum amount that a student can receive in a Pell Grant who's Pell eligible is $6,345. We talked about that EFC, the number that's calculated on the FAFSA. To be eligible for the Pell Grant, you must have an EFC that's less than $5,000. Excuse me. And then you have the FSEOG, which stands for the Federal Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant. That is a mouthful. So the award amount for the FSEOG is between $100,000 and $4,000. That is based, again, off your EFC, but then also it's going to be based off of how many students at your school qualify for this particular grant. So each school is receiving an allotment for this grant. So that's one reason. Another reason why you want to work on your FAFSA and get it completed as soon as possible. Then you have Access Missouri. You must have an EFC of $12,000 or less, and the priority deadline for this opportunity is February 1st. So get your FAFSA done by February 1st, so that if you qualify for this opportunity, you can be considered for it. For students that plan on attending a two-year institution, the amount that you can receive in the Access Missouri is between $300 and $1,300. If you're a student that plans on attending a four-year institution, you may receive between $1,500 and $2,800. And next is the A+ award. Your high school counselor will have information on the A+. I know there's been some adjustments in the requirements for A+ to help students meet eligibility during the pandemic. And so I would check in with your high school counselor if you have not already, to see if it's possible for you to still get A+ eligibility, so that it may help you pay for your tuition and general fees. So A+ can be used typically towards a two-year institution. I do know that Webster University is accepting A+, which is a four-year institution. But A+ is a great deal because it pays for your unpaid balance of your tuition and general fees after all non-loan federal financial assistance has been applied to your account. So basically what that means is if you're a student that's eligible for the Pell Grant, your A+ may not kick in, because the maximum for Pell Grant is $6,000 and some change. So if Pell Grant will kick in first, and then the A+ will come in if there's any remaining balance for your tuition and general fees. A+ won't go towards any other costs. And then the last one is the Illinois MAP grant. That's for students that reside in Illinois, which I don't believe we have on this call. But if we do, you can reach out to the Scholarship Foundation to learn more about that. So after hearing about all those free money options, there is a one way to be considered for all of this, and that is to complete the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. Again, it opens on October 1st. If you need assistance, please reach out to us. Alrighty. So let's talk about work study. I took advantage of work study when I was in college. It's an opportunity where students that are eligible to receive work study can work on campus, and it's really great for students because it's they work with your school schedule, so they are flexible. It's creative for students, and sometimes your tasks aren't that they don't require a lot of you, so a lot of students can do some reading while they're at work, but also it's a great way for you to get some work experience if you don't have any or much. So work study is a great opportunity for you to work near campus, earn a hourly income, and you can earn up to the maximum amount of your work study award. This is one of those self-help aids because you do have to work for this money. But the great thing is you can use your work study income to pay directly to your school balance. You could have it just go directly to your school. The student doesn't have to see it. Or if you have some indirect costs, so transportation costs, personal costs, so like food or anything else you might need during that school year, you can use your work study income for that as well in most cases. One important thing to note about work study is that it's the one opt-in option on the FAFSA. So all the other grants that I previously talked about in the other slide, you will automatically be considered for those opportunities once you complete the FAFSA. But for work study, on the FAFSA, it'll have an option for you to say yes or no. So to decide yes or no if you want to be considered for work study. And my recommendation is that you always say yes. It's possible that you do not want to do work study, and you are absolutely sure you don't want to work during your freshman year, which is understandable. But my recommendation is to say yes, because circumstances may change for you. You may realize that, hey, I'm managing pretty well and some extra income would not hurt. And so if you say yes, then that option is still available for you. But if you say no on the FAFSA, it's really possible that you will not have that option, at least for that year. And in some schools, you may not have the option if you don't do work study in your freshman year. So that's why I encourage you, and the Scholarship Foundation encourage students to say yes on that question on the FAFSA. All right, so now we've talked about your grants, scholarships, as well as work study. Now let's talk about student loans. I talked to so many students and they say, I'm only 18, I don't want to take out any student loans. And I'm like, I don't want you to either. But the truth is a lot of students use student loans to help them pay for their college expense. So whether, I don't want to say don't take out student loans, they're evil. The Scholarship Foundation has separated student loans between ones that are better options and then student loans that you should be cautious about. So let's get started with the federal and private loans. So your federal loans are the loans that you'll be offered after you complete the FAFSA. More than likely, your school will offer you this loan, tell you the amount that you are eligible for, and then you can decide to accept or decline that loan. We suggest that federal loans are safer for students and they're better for students because they always have a fixed interest rate. That interest rate will never change on you for that particular loan for that year. In addition to that, the interest rates are usually lower. And I'll show you a slide later on that talks a little bit about the interest rate for the federal loans. And then also there's protections placed on federal loans that are designed to protect and help the student out that private loans won't have. So for example, with federal loans, you have a grace period from when you graduate, from when you will have to start paying back that loan. And so private loans, ones you can get from a bank, a private lender, are options that we encourage students to be cautious about for reasons like that. Students will have the option to take loans out in the name of the student, and in most cases, schools will offer students a loan that'll be taken out in the name of the parent. And that's called a Parent Plus loan. And we encourage students to take out a student loan versus the parent loan because the interest rate is significantly lower again for student loans. The loans will be in the name in the student, which is better because this is the student's investment, this is their education. And then also with the student loans, you don't have to pay back your loans immediately. With the Parent Plus loan, once that loan's taken out, you need to start paying for it immediately. And then you have subsidized and unsubsidized loans. These two loans sound very similar. They actually have a lot of similarities in what is all implied with that loan. And one of my coworkers, they really like words and language, and so they pointed out that so a subsidy is a helping hand, and so an easy way for you to remember the differences between the subsidized and unsubsidized loan is that the subsidy, the government's going to be giving you a helping hand where you won't have to pay interest for that loan while you're in school. Versus the unsubsidized loan, there will be no helping hand and the student will be charged interest right away. So for example, with an unsubsidized loan, or let's start with the subsidized loan. If you take out $1,000 your freshman year for the unsubsidized loan, you will not be paid interest, or you will not be charged interest. So the amount you borrow your freshman year will be the same amount you have to owe when you graduate. Now, of course, you will be charged interest after a grace period, which is 6 months for federal loans. And so that loan will charge interest after graduation, but for a lot less time. With your unsubsidized loan, you won't be receiving a helping hand and you'll be charged interest right away. So if a student borrows $1,000 in their freshman year, 4 years later, when they've graduated, they're owing something like $4,300. And so that's just to show you how that loan will grow, how the subsidized loan does not grow while you're in school compared to the unsubsidized one. And we'll talk a little bit more about those loans in a couple of slides, so stick with me. But for now, let's talk about how to determine your financial need. A lot of students will look at the sticker price, and the sticker price is not going to tell you very much for an individual student and how much they will have to pay towards school. So this is how we look at the unmet need. This is a simple equation we use at the Scholarship Foundation to look at a student's unmet need. And then also a lot of financial aid offices at the universities and colleges will use a similar equation. So you're going to start with the cost of attendance, how much it's going to cost you to attend that school. Some schools will include direct and indirect costs. If not, that's something you want to add into your equation yourself. Then you will subtract your expected family contribution. So remember, this is the number that's calculated on the FAFSA, and this number represents how much your family can contribute towards the cost of that student's education. And a lot of times that is considered an out-of-pocket expense. From there, you'll subtract any gift aid, so any free money you're receiving, those grants and scholarships. And then you'll come up with your unmet need. And this next slide, these are numbers of an actual student that they use to determine the unmet need. So this student had $29,000 for their cost of attendance. So this included their tuition, fees, book supplies, and living expenses. The student completed the FAFSA and their expected family contribution was calculated at $4,416. This was again determined by the FAFSA, an out-of-pocket expense, And if you get an EFC that is, it doesn't represent your family's financial ability. So I'm going to backtrack. On the FAFSA, you're reporting financial information from 2 years ago. So a lot can change from 2 years to now. So if your family has had a decrease in income, if there's been a job loss, or if there's been other special circumstances like an increase in medical bills, that's something that can be taken in consideration to recalculate your EFC. And if that's something you want to talk more about with someone at the Scholarship Foundation, I welcome you to reach out to us about that. But back to the student, they received $12,284 in grants. And so that's, that free money. They completed the FAFSA. Maybe they've been offered Pell Grant, Access Missouri, or another scholarship that they applied for. And now they still have an unmet need. They received a lot of aid, but they still have an unmet need of $12,400. And so this is the remaining amount to fulfill their cost of education. This is what that student has to figure out how to fill that gap. And a lot of students will do it with either taking out federal loans or private loans. Now, one thing I want to note is that the student has options. They don't have to go to the school. The school costs them $12,000 and the school costs them $29,000 and they receive $12,000. But maybe there's another school on their list that costs less or is offering them more aid. And one tip is to apply to more schools than once so that you have these options to compare all the numbers. Give yourself some options, do yourself a favor, because you may think you know what you want right now, but 6 months from now, a lot can change. So that's a little tip from me. So let's talk about more with the unsubsidized and subsidized loans, and also the loan from the Scholarship Foundation that you may be able to take advantage of if you find yourself with an unmet need. So one takeaway that I want students to look at with the subsidized and unsubsidized loan, or all of these loans, there are limitations on how much you can take out for a year and also for the lifetime. So there are limits. So students are like, I know I want to go to this school. I have a $20,000 unmet need. And we're like, how are you going to fill that need? You can only take out $35,000 in unsubsidized loan in your first year. So these are just things to be thinking about, to be mindful of. So if you see in the subsidized loan, the first column, in your freshman year, you can only borrow $3,500. It increases by $1,000 until your third year, and $55,000 is the max for a year. If you look at the unsubsidized loan, there is a D and an I next to those two figures. The D stands for dependent, and the I is for independent. And that is just a classification on if a student needs to provide parent information on the FAFSA. Most students will need to provide parent information, and there's going to be some questions on the FAFSA to help students determine that. Now, to be a dependent student, let me go back. For an independent student, here's some things that if you can say yes to, you would be considered independent on the FAFSA. So if you were in the military, if you were a veteran, if you have dependents that you provide more than 50% of their support to, if both parents are deceased or you were in foster care or a ward of the court since turning 13, if you are an emancipated minor, if anyone other than your parent or step-parent have legal guardianship of you, or if you were homeless or self-supporting or at risk of being homeless, you would be considered an independent student. So that would mean you don't need to provide parent information on the FAFSA, and the amount that you can receive in the unsubsidized loan is higher. Now, I understand that not all students will fit into these neat boxes to be considered an independent student. And so there is a way around it. There are some other special circumstances if you were still unable to provide parent information for whatever reason. And I could definitely help you navigate that. And sorry, I'm losing my train of thought for a second, but it'll come. I'm going to move on. So looking at the subsidized and the unsubsidized loan, they both have identical interest rates. And with those interest rates, it'll stick with that loan for that year, for the life of that loan that you've taken out for that year. So if you can see right now, for this coming up school year, or for this school year, it's 2.75. But that interest rate will be reevaluated and it could change every year, and that's done in the summer. So to give you an example how interest rates have shifted over time, 2.75 is very low for how the interest rate has been set for a lot of years. So in 2019, 2020, the interest rate was 4.53. And that drop, I think, had a lot to do with the pandemic. So you just want to keep your eye out, especially if you do plan on taking out a loan for any given year. Have a look at what that interest rate is. And if you look at the Scholarship Foundation column, the very end, this is the stats for our interest-free, fee-free student loan. And one thing to note, because the Scholarship Foundation is a nonprofit organization, we don't make a dime off of our interest-free loans that we offer students. But what we do is once a student has repaid their loan that they've taken from the foundation or that they've received from the foundation, we then use those funds to help another student pay for their education. The amount that we allow students to borrow for 1 year is up to $11,000. And our interest-free loan, in most cases, is just for students in their undergrad. So typically those first 4 years of college. And our lifetime limit is $55,000. And of course, it is interest-free, so that interest rate is 0. And that is for the life of the loan. You'll never be charged interest if you receive an interest-free loan from the Scholarship Foundation. Oh, one thing I wanted to add that I forgot is that for dependency status, if you do have a special circumstance or if you're considered a dependent, you may be asked to provide additional documentation to support that. All right. So I'm going to take a breath and a drink of water, excuse me. And you all breathe too, because I know this has been a lot of information, may have been overwhelming, but I appreciate you for sticking with me so far. So let's talk about staying organized. A lot goes into this process. So how are you going to manage all of it? And a suggestion is to create a filing system. When I think about a filing system, I think of like one of those filing drawers that pulls way out. And I know people don't keep paper like that these days, but creating a filing system that works for you, whether that's a physical folder or you want to have a college folder on your Google Drive that's just designated for your school stuff. I think it's so important to keep all your stuff together, maybe divide it into categories. So you have stuff that's all about your financial aid and where you are in the process. Or you want to keep a filing system for all the schools that you're interested in. And then you can delete that as you cross off schools on your list, and maybe a list for schools that you've applied to and ones that you still want to apply to, or schools that you've gotten response back from. Keeping filing system is going to help you lower your stress level, be able to identify where you are in the process, and just keeping you organized overall is going to be a really helpful thing throughout this process. In addition to that, you want to be sure to save all the steps that you've taken. Save confirmation emails, save responses that you've received from admission offices, from the financial aid office. Save all those things so that you can backtrack. You'll be making lots of decisions. You'll be communicating with a lot of people. You'll be completing scholarship applications, admission applications, and you want to be able to reference back to what you've done. Especially if someone says, hey, I don't think you met our deadline. You can say, yes, I did. I saved this document where it's dated, it's time-stamped, and it says confirmed. So you want to create that insurance for yourself by saving, keeping original documents, taking screenshots and stuff like that. One super helpful tip is that be sure to access the student portals and college emails accounts. You want to do that early and often. And the reason why is because once you've been accepted to a school, that school is going to want to get you acclimated to communicating through those portals. They want you to learn those tools that you can use in adapting to those ways of communication, because they want you to feel like you're going to be one of their students soon. They're going to be communicating with you with things about financial aid, about important checklists that you need to complete. So check into those things often and early. Am I doing good on time? You're going to give me a thumbs up or?
Yes, we're doing fine.
Okay.
And we
great.
do have a few questions for when you wrap up. So
okay,
we're fine.
Great. So yes, do that early and often. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the scholarship search process. So when you apply for a school, a lot of times you're being considered for institutional scholarships through that school just by simply applying. So one reason why you want to apply early, but in addition to that, you should also be checking and doing your research to see if there's alternative ways to be considered for more aid for you to attend that school. Next, after looking at the schools that you're interested in, be sure to start your local search. So you want to be competing with students that are near you, not the whole nation, but students that live in the St. Louis metropolitan area. And a good place to start with that search is at myscholarshipcentral.org. This is a website which is basically a search engine for scholarship opportunities in the St. Louis metropolitan area. That's where the Scholarship Foundation, that's where we put our interest-free loan, as well as our other scholarship opportunities. And so I encourage you to start now. You can create a general application today on that website, but most opportunities will become available closer to the second semester. So in January, the Scholarship Foundation will upload information about our scholarship opportunities for the next school year. And a lot of organizations will do the same as well around that time. One incentive for setting up your account early is that you will receive email notifications about when new opportunities become available on that website. So again, that's myscholarshipcentral.org. If you want some more general information about that website, I can help you with that as well. In addition to that website, check in with your school counselor. So remember, you want your competitions pool to be as small as possible. You want to increase your odds of getting that scholarship. So your school counselor may know of opportunities that are just for that school district, or maybe your county. So be sure to check in with them. And also maybe your school counselor knows of personal stuff about you, and they know of scholarships that would fit where you would be eligible just because of maybe you're a twin or anything or any interest that you have in any topic that they can reference to you. And then after that, you can start your search on the national level. Not to say that they aren't worth applying to, but I just think this is a wise way to prioritize how you designate your time to your scholarship search. And now on to some helpful hints. I think I've said this probably 10 times, maybe more during this presentation, but apply early. Once it's open, start applying. What are you waiting for? Be sure to get your foot in the door. You don't want to leave any opportunities on the table because you missed the deadline. Apply to more than one school. I know there's somebody out there that's got their dream school. They know what school they want to go to, what their major is, what dorm they want to stay in, what bed they want for their dorm. That's great, but do yourself a favor and apply to more than one school. You want to give yourself the options. A lot's going to change from now to the point on where you are leaving home, or when you're deciding to, or when it's time for you to start college. So apply to more than one school. I'll say that again. Don't rule out the private schools. A lot of times private school means a higher price tag, but also some schools may have access to resources that other schools won't. So just because that sticker price is significantly higher than another school, they may be able to offer you some more aid to make that price a lot less. So give yourselves options, apply to a variety of schools, private, public, 2-year, 4-year, in-state, out-of-state. You want to have all these options so that once you're ready to make that decision, you have a lot of things to base that off of. If needed, appeal early. So you can appeal if a student has, or if a school has offered you money and it is not enough. That does not mean that they will give you more money, but at least you can ask. If circumstances have changed for you and your household, that's also another way that you can ask for more aid by lowering your expected family contribution, that EFC. And then know your personal loan and debt limits. Like I mentioned earlier, student loans are a real way that a lot of students use to pay for their college education. And I believe that if done with conscious, it's been a long day. If you get all the information, you can make a choice that fits your need. So yes, identifying how you feel about any particular amount of loans right now is important, but also being sure that you understand what that's going to mean for you down the road. Typically for students, it takes, depending on how long they're in school, a lot of students take between 10 and 20 years to pay off their loan. And so you will be doing new things in life. So be looking at what that's going to look for you in the future. Base it off of what you expect maybe your income would be whenever you're deciding how much you want to take out in loans to help pay for your education. And I'm almost done, almost the last slide. I want to talk about some of the eligibility requirements for the Scholarship Foundation's interest-free loan and our grants. So for our funding, we're looking for students that have financial need, that they have academic promise. We're only looking for a 2.0, a cumulative GPA, and a 4.0 scale. We're looking for a strong character. So we have questions and opportunities for essays and creative pieces in the application where we'll be looking at the student's character. Students must be a permanent resident of the St. Louis metropolitan area. And you can attend any school in the country as long as it's an accredited nonprofit institution. So the Scholarship Foundation won't provide funding if you're going to one of those for-profit schools. And if you'd like some help identifying if the schools you're interested in are for-profit or nonprofit, I can help you with that. Some important deadlines. Our scholarship application opens up on January 1st, and our deadline for the coming ups for the following school year will be April 15th. We made an exception this year for our deadline, but I would count on April 15th to be a hard deadline this year. All right. And all of our funding is renewable. So that means that if you're awarded funding from the Scholarship Foundation your freshman year, as long as you continue to meet the requirements, you will receive that money for the following years, up to 6 years for most of our opportunities. And students may receive a conditional denial for having too much need. And we're determining that need with that equation that I showed you. So your cost of attendance, your expected family contribution, and any grant that you've received to determine your unmet need if it's more than our maximum amount for our interest-free loan or a grant that you're applying for, we will do a conditional denial, which means we'll ask the student to either choose a different school, or if they're able to bring some additional resources through scholarships or grants, then we'll reconsider you for funding. So we can open it up for questions, and here's the contact information for the Scholarship Foundation. And here's a picture of all of our student advisors. And this link was provided with all students, but I just want to point out there's a link if you would like to be connected with one of our advisors. It's sfstl.org/CRI. So if you complete that link, the Scholarship Foundation will reach out to you. I actually think I shared a different link with you all, which will be for you to set up an appointment with me. In addition to that, my contact information, my direct contact information is at the bottom.
Wow, that was a lot of really helpful information, Ms. Newton. Thank you. And so if you forget about these links and can't remember them tomorrow, you can always reach out to your guidance offices at your school, and your counselors will be able to connect you to Ms. Newton and the Scholarship Foundation. But we do have some questions. Ms. Shaughnessy, would you be willing to address those?
Oh, absolutely. So one of the questions was, is this a program? Like, can you clarify a little bit more about the process of connecting with the Scholarship Foundation and how that works, please?
Yeah, so the Scholarship Foundation, you can look at it as a program. So with our funding, if a student receives funding with us, they'll be a part of the Scholarship Foundation. They'll be a foundation student where they will receive their own advisor that'll help them navigate all the complex aspects of going to school as a first-generation student, or as a minority student, or a student that is low income. We really cater towards students and understand how complex the college life is. So in addition to that, we offer resources to everyone as far as like guidance and helping them through their process or any obstacles they may be facing while they're in college or as they're planning to go to college. I hope that addresses the question.
There was another question about the, would it be a good idea to get a job your first year of college, or would your work study be better? So that was one of the questions. And I think it's probably individual, right? What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. That is definitely up to the student to understand. I think it's really first and foremost important for the student to understand how life for them is going to change when they go to school, and understand how their ability to navigate that. If working off campus is something you can manage, definitely. If a work study would be something that's more convenient for you because maybe you don't have a car, or maybe you prefer to just be closer to campus if you're new to a new town, that would be something to consider as well. But I would say it's definitely up to the student.
So do you also have provide services for juniors, or do you mostly work with seniors?
I'm assuming that's for high school juniors.
Mm-hmm.
So we do have some presentations that are catered towards students that aren't seniors in high school, but a lot of the bulk of our work is catered towards high school seniors. But if there's any juniors out there that would like to talk with the Scholarship Foundation to maybe talk about their plans, discuss some options that they may have, we've done that before, and we're happy to keep doing it.
Lastly, there's kind of a confusion about the FAFSA in general, like do you apply? Are you eligible for the FAFSA? So just some general questions about the FAFSA, kind of clarifying for students to direct them.
Yes, so the FAFSA is a form essentially that students will complete to be considered for most federal aid, all federal aid, some state aid, and then a lot of institutional aid. So financial aid that's offered through your school. There are some eligibilities with the FAFSA that is tied with citizenship. So if there's someone that has questions about that in regards to their citizenship, then the Scholarship Foundation, we have experience with navigating that process. But also if there's any other concerns that you might have in relation to eligibility, or you're curious if your family or if your student should complete the FAFSA, we can help you talk about that with you as well.
Excellent. Ms. Shaughnessy, were there any other questions?
I think that pretty much wraps it up.
All right.
Okay. Are there any final thoughts from our panel? Okay, well, I think this will conclude our session. Ms. Newton, we cannot thank you enough for joining us today to share all this really fantastic and helpful information.
Thank you
Okay,
for
and
inviting me.
I have a feeling that some students will be reaching out to you.
Great.
Okay, so I guess this will conclude our session. Would you mind unsharing your screen, please?
Yep, I will do that right now.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And I will see you all soon.
Thank you, Dominisha.